Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Being Spiritual with me, your host, Ashley Robinson, Richard James in the studio, and my very special guest this evening, Mr. Philip Solomon. Good evening, Philip. How are you doing?
Good evening, Ashley. I'm very well, and you too, I hope.
Absolutely fantastic. Really pleased to have you here with us this evening. Welcome to all of our guests on YouTube now coming into the show. I'll give you a bit of housekeeping, folks joining us on YouTube tonight. We love having you as part of this community, and we really appreciate you doing everything you can to build the community. So there's a couple of little things you can do for us, which helps us with that. First thing is, hopefully you're enjoying the shows and you've come back to see this one again. So give our video a little thumbs up. That helps with the algorithms on YouTube to let people know that this is something worthy of looking. The other thing you can do is you can subscribe to Spiritual Psychic TV, and by doing that you'll get all of the notifications about all of the other shows that are going on. I encourage you to participate in this show. This is all about you and I and Philip engaging with you. We're really keen to take all of your questions, and you can ask us anything spiritual this evening. But in order to do that, you need to log into the live chat. So you need a YouTube account. You can do that. It's free. It's very quick to do. If you've logged in with YouTube, you should see the live chat option. And in that window, you'll be able to put your comments, and then those live chat comments will go to Richard in the studio. He'll be able to communicate with us in the earpiece, and we'll be able to see who's joining us. If it's your first time, do let us know if it's your first time, and let us know where in the world you're watching the show from. It would be great to see where all of our guests, all of our visitors, if you like, to the channel are this evening, and we'll be able to give you a special hello, but a special welcome to all of you on this Friday night, 20th of November. Very pleased to have you with us. The final thing that I would ask you to do is to consider sharing this stream. So you can obviously share the channel, but you'll find a little forward arrow on this stream, and what you can do is you can copy the link to this live video. You can paste that in a text message in WhatsApp. You can put it on Twitter and send a tweet, or you can go onto Facebook, tag a friend and say that you're watching Spiritual Psychics TV live tonight. Ashley Robinson with his special guest Philip Solomon. We're talking about spiritualist philosophy, and I'll be doing a little bit of an interview asking my friend Philip a little bit about his motivation and inspiration for getting involved in spiritualism. So do let us know that you can hear. You can see us, put those comments into the live chat, and we'll be able to do a special good evening and welcome. So Richard will start to give me details of those comments as they come in. But Philip, it's your first time joining Spiritual Psychics TV tonight, but very much a veteran ambassador in the spiritualist world, if you don't mind me saying. So I'm sure this is just another cup of spiritualist tea for you.
That's very kind of you, and I think it's always great to be in a conversation with you or a member of your family who've been great friends of mine back to the day of your grandfather, and you put it very nicely, but for me, I'm honoured to be with you.
Oh, it's great to have you. I'm going to do a couple of hellos and welcomes to people that are watching us now. Richard, are you able to put a couple of those on the screen for us? That's okay. Well, good evening, folks. I'll try and plan B sometimes and look at my phone as well. No doubt I'll be able to see with the live chat. Okay, so Christine, good evening to you. Christine says, hello to Richard and everyone from Bournemouth. Lovely, Christine, that you've joined us from Bournemouth this evening. And my good friend June from Wimbledon there. Hi, Ashley, can't wait to see Philip Solomon. Evening, everyone. I know that June's been looking forward to hearing from you tonight, Philip.
That's very kind. Thank you, June.
A great supporter of all of our spiritual psychic events, June is, and also a very powerful healer. Cherie Dyer says, good evening, Richard and Ashley and June. Hope you're all well. Hi, Cherie. Leslie Knight, our spiritual healer, lead trainer and counsellor down at Wimbledon Spiritualist Church, was doing meditations this morning on Spiritual Psychics TV. Good evening, Leslie. Reverend Leslie Knight, lovely to have you. Alison Barton says, evening to all. And Julie Caswell, I know Julie's been looking forward. I've had a couple of text messages from Julie saying she was looking forward to tuning in and seeing you tonight, Philip.
Lovely, great.
Mary Dixie, my last circle leader. Good evening, Mary. Lovely to have you with us. Karen Goddard, friend and colleague. Good evening, Karen. Lovely to have you on the show with us tonight. Vivian McIntosh says good evening to everybody. Hi, Vivian. Birgitta Visa, yeah. Aloha, Ash and Phil. Birgitta was sharing a video she did of your interview, Philip, actually a little while ago on her YouTube channel. I think you said, Birgitta, was about 3 years ago now.
Should be possibly.
Time flies by.
Around that, she does. What a wonderful, wonderful lady. Great to have her with us.
She is indeed. Stace Shaw says good evening, Richard, Ashley, Philip, and everyone. Hi, Stace. Lovely to have you joining us.
Hi, Stace.
Hi, Claire. Claire Grundy says good evening to all.
Good evening, Claire.
Terry Wall, she says good evening, Ash, Philip, and Richard, and everyone. Hope you've all had a lovely day. We hope you've had a lovely day too, Terry. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Terry.
Great. Thank you. And thanks to all of you that have joined the show this evening. Kevin and Ben is here. Hi, Kevin. Great to have you with us too. So, Philip, I asked you to come on the show tonight, and I thought that it would be really good to tell the people listening a little bit more about yourself and how you got involved in spiritualism. And I thought that I'd sort of start with how I met you. And I met you within spiritualism. My grandfather had introduced me to you at one of our spiritual and psychic weekends, Spirit Seeker, where you'd come down as one of our supporting mediums. He did a fantastic demonstration of clairvoyance and a couple of workshops over that weekend. But when did you first get involved in spiritualism?
Well, I'm probably a little bit like you, to be honest, Ashley, which is unusual for many mediums or many followers of spiritualism. That I was born into it, really, because my grandmother was a medium who was involved in starting a spiritualist church in the West Midlands. Of course, my mother was a very, very famous medium, especially in the West Midlands. And, well, in latter life, my dad became a medium as well. But with my mother being so involved in spiritualism, both as the church medium and president for quite a while, I suppose it was a natural progression that I would come into spiritualism. I had a break from it in my teens when, I think you all do, I had dreams of being a rock star, and I could play a few chords and sing a bit, but the same as yourself, I mean, knowing your family, basically, I know it's not probably the ideal way to answer your opening question, but I was born into it, really, which is unusual. Most people come into spiritualism, I suppose, when they lose someone or go and get dragged along with someone else to one of our meetings, But for me, it was always there. As a little lad of perhaps 3 or 4, I'd always got my ears going listening to my mother talking to her friends about it as well, and it used to fascinate me but scare me at the same time, to be quite honest. But I'm sure you must have a similar background, Ashley, to that with your family,
I've always said on this show, actually, I feel fortunate actually to have been brought up as a spiritualist,
yes,
to sort of spiritualist family, because not only did that mean that they kind of brought me up to kind of respect and above and beyond tolerate. I always hate that word tolerate. Tolerate each other. No, respect and love everyone for their different views. It gave me this nice little foundation to go off on my own little journey and explore it. But I've often joked to my mum and dad, certainly as a kid, I can remember saying to my mum and dad, I hope you're not offended if I don't follow in your footsteps. I don't see myself doing any of that mediumship stuff. And Dad, I don't think I could ever be a minister. I think that's not for me. And then this year I put in an application to become a minister. So yeah, those foundations are obviously solid enough to get me to do whatever I wanted to do. There was no pushiness.
No, I mean, I wasn't pushed either, I must admit, really. It was left to me. I think when I sort of came back to spiritualism after 3 or 4 years of living a different life, I think my mother was delighted to see me do that, and but I never, when I say really that I had a little time, I suppose I didn't. But what I did do, Ashley, I was very interested in lots of different religions, lots of different cultures, lots of other different ways of looking at progression and things like that. And and how other people found their way to God and what their creeds and beliefs were, And if I'm quite honest, I think although maybe I disappointed Mother a little bit, not being purely with her at the church, I think she probably supported that because I know many times when she was doing a teaching, taking, classes or circle or whatever, she would, I'd be there and then sitting and taking part, perhaps sitting back and listening. You didn't say jump in too much when your mother was lead medium, and teacher. You know what I mean, don't you?
Yeah.
But she didn't discourage it. I probably quite encouraged that part of my life, looking into all different things. I was given the option of doing that, and I had a fascination, really, I suppose, with all the Indian and subcontinent ways of looking towards God, if you want to put it. And there's only one God at the end of the day, above all of us, isn't there? But that would sort of be my story, I suppose. But like you, I think my mother always said to me, "You say all this, but you'll come back to being a working medium." And as usual with Mother, she was correct.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Few other people joining us the show. So good evening to Sophia. So first time visiting this channel. She sends us her love and light. She's a spiritual medium and healer. Hi, Sophia.
Hey, Sophia. Together.
And Christine Davis has just joined us. Says good evening all.
Good evening, Christine.
And Shannon Ramos, my friend from Kentucky. In the States. I say friend, I know her partner very well, and we're just starting to connect online. Hi there, Shannon.
Hey, Shannon, one of my favourite parts of the world.
Some great bourbon.
Some great fried chicken as well.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got similar interests, haven't we, mate? Yeah.
Eileen Macy says good evening to us all. Hi, Eileen.
Hi, Eileen.
And Crystal says good evening to Ashley and Philip. Hi, Crystal.
Hi, Crystal.
Crystallize. Phil, Mr. Phil Shaw. Good evening, Phil.
Hello, Phil.
Thank you, Richard, for bringing up those names. Philip, when I first started this show, I spoke about the fact that I think labels are quite private to individuals, but I quite proudly also call myself a spiritualist medium. Out there, lots of people refer to themselves in different names. I've heard psychic medium, spirit medium, spiritualist, spiritual medium. And I've also spoke about, obviously, my roots at Wimbledon Hatbridge Church. And at Wimbledon, we proudly accept the leadership of Jesus. We believe he was a very inspirational character and great leader. And Hatbridge, our sister church, was for a very long time what I would describe as a Christian spiritualist church. My father, as you know, was part of the Greater World Christian Spiritualist Association for a while. So as it sort of stands today, proudly call myself a spiritualist medium. And one of the things I haven't said is, your full title would be that of Reverend Philip Solomon. You are ordained minister within spiritualism. How important is that sort of part of the culture to you with your spiritualism?
In my personal life, oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a fantastic question you really are. For maybe Derek, your father might be guiding you a bit there with me. I don't know, but I mean, the thing was really, I have to say this, and I know Mother won't mind me saying this, but I mean, my mother was the president of an SNU church, and my grandmother helped to build that particular church. But I'll tell you this now, in all honesty, and when she got the long service award from the SNU, but my mother was a Christian spiritualist. She always was. I remember my mother's great friend, your dad's great friend too, the late great Gordon Higginson, coming to Darliston and saying to my mother, well, I know where you are, Elsie, I know which way you live, but those crosses have got to come down. And the story went, well, you know how things go around in church. One of the two had got their ears bending, and she said to him, well, I shall progress, hopefully. I have to get a little bit higher than that first level, Gordon, but you take those crosses down, leave it till when I've gone, because if you don't, I'll haunt you. Now, there's a story for you.
Yeah.
The late great, and not many stood up to Gordon, but my mother, they didn't worry too much about that sort of thing. You know, she a bit like your dad, really. She called it how it was, really, and that was she was always a Christian. She's always believed in the Lord Jesus, and I do too. And I mean, for many years, I suppose I served both churches. I haven't done so many churches, which I'm probably not best proud of, but just doing so many other things in my career, which I'm sure you talk to me about. But you know, I've never really hidden being a Christian spiritualist church, being a Christian spiritualist. I don't know. I think there was a time, maybe in the 60s or 70s, when there was a bigger division, perhaps, than there is today. I don't know, you know, or someone actually, I remember having quite a discussion with your grandfather about, and I think he said to me, it doesn't matter where you go as long as you serve and you've got Jesus in your heart, go for it. And stuff.
Yeah.
I'm very, very fond of your grandfather. He offered out, phone me up and want me to do things that, in all honesty, I sort of thought before, I don't want to do this, and certainly for not what you're going to pay me, Del.
He was the equivalent of a spiritualist crowbar, I think,
He
sometimes.
was.
Helping to loosen people up into serving spirit in the way he thought would
absolutely. And by the end of the conversation, you generally agree to do, rather than what you thought you were going to do, exactly what Derek wanted you to do. He was a very influential man. I greatly loved him. Lovely guy.
And I know he was fond of you, and I think you're right. He does continue to sort of guide and inspire me. I'm sort of taking your spiritualist career backwards in a way and starting with the modern time. But I wonder, when I said to you today, I've put an application in this year to start studying to become an ordained spiritualist minister myself. When did you think that that was what you wanted to do? That you wanted to take that next step?
Well, I'd always been I think it was something that I'd sort of decided, and I mean, spiritualism knows they know what you're thinking. The IR network know what you're thinking, and if you're thinking and you're leading yourself towards that thing that's driving you, that little thing in your heart that thinks the right, because I think you have to have it in your heart to want to serve in that way. But I think a big influence on that really was my great friend Lynn Guesty Swart, who of course now is Lynn Guest. Lynn Guesty. I still call her Lynn Guesty Swart. I'm sure she won't mind that. She'll always be that to me, I think. And of course, she was my editor at Psychic News for many years. After Tony Horton, I think that would be. And I became very, very fond of Lynn. And she spoke to me at some length and in some depth, really, about my feelings towards spiritualism. And she said, well, you know, you should be with us in the new Christian Spiritualist Society. You use the same word, to be honest. You've been such an ambassador for the last 45 years. You know, you ought to be fulfilling a role of opening the church to the world, if you like. And those words sort of, well, they got to me. They struck home. And I'd already done a lot of studying, obviously, of spiritualism into great depths and for many, many years. But she was probably the driving force. And I have to say that I am actually the bishop of that church in the West Midlands now. So I have moved on a little bit from that. But I think it was always there in me, really, wanting to do that. My unfortunate situation is, in the few years that I've been fulfilling that role, is as I've not really, Spirit have not found it for me, really, but I don't have my own church yet. But again, I'm very influenced by those people like your dad and your grandfather and Lee. And she says, well, what's your problem with that, Philip? Why are you working so hard and rushing it? I said, well, you know, I have my church. If I've got to have my church, you know. Well, she says, you go out and talk to people rock events and all sorts of things, don't you?
Mm.
I says, yeah, I do. I says, well, the great one himself, his church was on the mountains, wasn't it? Do you think that you're of any way any different to the work that he did? And he just struck home with me, And I still want my little church, the whole great network.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely. I mean, Linda Swartz, was a name I first had to try and spell as a young dyslexic child trying to write the newsletter at Wimbledon Spiritualist Church. But I
yes,
can also remember the power of the psychic news. Certainly before the internet, or when you needed a modem. I don't know how many young viewers we've got on tonight, but trying to connect on a
yes,
dial-up modem over your telephone line and trying to get something across. It'd take you an hour or two to try and send a photo, but the idea of the newsletter and before Richard's time, he says. But I remember all these brilliant articles and the way that the psychic news could get out, and it was almost like a common thing for people. It was how they learnt. It was this spiritualist social media of
yes.
its time. The other person you mentioned there, Gordon Higginson, and actually one of the reasons I called you an ambassador was back in 1982, so about 38 years ago, that my grandfather formed Life After Death Promotions with Gordon
I
Higginson, and at
remember
the time
those.
Doris Stokes
Yeah,
and Jesse Nason. And what they said is, spiritualism in the churches is fantastic, but we look around the congregation. These are, and to quote Derek Akora, who I know you knew as well, Derek's quote was something along the lines of, to the non-believer, no proof is possible, but to the believer, no proof is necessary. And I
yes,
think that the average spiritualist congregation, you had believers, in general. And my granddad and Gordon and Doris and Jesse said, we need to take spiritualism out. We need to take our knowledge of life after death out to the
yes,
people. We need to take
yes,
the truths of spiritualism out. And the reason I call you as an ambassador is exactly that. You've shown that you are the medium, and you don't need anything particularly fancy. Spirit will work with you in any appropriate place. I think you mentioned there a span of time that you've been doing this. What would you say was the most unusual venues you've ever given a demonstration of mediumship at?
oh gosh, I've been to some very small and quaint churches, as you probably are doing now in your career. But I would think probably I would think the I wouldn't say it was unusual, but the first time I went out to well, originally to be tested by Professor Hans Olsen, but of course we became great friends and he became my mentor to some extent. But I remember doing a service in New York. Now, as I don't know whether you work in the States or not, but they have a very different way of working. And a lot of what I had been taught, the structure of how to present the service was a little different and a lot more at that time, going back a few years, of course, Ashley, but very light-hearted, really. There was popular music playing rather than just the sort of music that we would normally be used to. Everyone, where's the little room now where I go away and so, oh, no, stop out. And it was unusual to me that, but I rather liked the States. It was great for me, really, obviously through hands. And but that was probably the most unusual. And probably quite small as well. I mean, I remember going to the Society of Psychical Studies in New York, and I did a service there. And I went down really well with the upper spirits. But probably those two, I would think. You're a long way from home, aren't you?
Yeah.
And with our regional accents, I have that West Midland accent, as you have that. You probably, I don't know whether you would call it a London accent or not, but having said that, I have absolutely something that always resonates. Where I think my love of America. I think I've been pretty open in that in my autobiography and in my life generally. But one thing I do love about working out there is they don't bother about whether you've got an accent. As long as you can do your work and you've got a good art, they don't care what sort of accent you've got. But I mean, there was a time, really, even in my mother's day, when you would be encouraged to speak very correctly. and to make sure that you've got your suit on, and that you were immaculately dressed. And now you're going to say, "I've seen you work, Philip, for us, and you're always generally very well dressed."
Definitely.
I don't think you ever get away from it, but different. I got to be honest. I really would love to get back out there. I mean, I'm not so young now, but although they were unusual services, it's somewhere I'd really like to get back to. And funny enough, I'm interviewing Alexander Holzer. I don't know whether you've interviewed her, but I'm interviewing her on my radio shortly, I hope. And no doubt we will be talking about the old days with me and her father. He was a great mentor to me, really. But I've gone off. I suppose I've gone off a little bit at a tangent there, but probably those two, I would think.
No, it's
But
very interesting. I've got a couple of follow-up questions, but
Sure.
I think it's a good opportunity to plug your radio show and station. I mentioned before we went live that you were the first person that ever streamed me in any sort of way. You invited me onto to your live radio show, which I think was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. But for people that are watching tonight, where and when can they find your radio show now?
Well, it's quite simple. You just go on to and just type Pulse Talk Radio into any of your search engines, and you'll see my smiling face on there amongst many others. And my show is on a Thursday night between 6 and 8 o'clock, and it's called The Paranormal World of Philip Solomon, which is, I wondered about that really, because I wasn't maybe exactly what I might have gone for, but it seems to be very popular. The first, I'm always a little bit questionable of numbers, but the first couple of shows that I've done, I think it's been getting on for, I think it was 11,000 listeners the first week and about 15 the next. So it seems to have been received quite well, but it's very new, of course, Ashley. I think you're thinking of when I interviewed you when I was on, would it be the BBC or Wolverhampton City Radio?
It's Wolverhampton, yeah.
Well, 13 years in the chair there until a few weeks ago. But as one door shuts, another one opens. You mentioned, did I mention? Oh, I didn't matter. Either one of us, we mentioned Psychic News. I mean, a good many years there under 2 or 3 different editors. Loved it. And then one day they decide that they want to change things, as you have to in the media. It has to change, whatever it is. And the next day I get a call from you, because you remember lovely Ray Taylor, great friend of your grandfather's again. And the very next day he asked me to join Psychic World, which I've been with ever since. So, but I do really enjoy my time in radio. Done a lot of TV work as well, of course. Yeah. But I decided, to be quite honest, I was going to have a break for 2 or 3 years. I'm not going to be dishonest with you. I think I was disappointed after 13 years to leave Wolverhampton City Radio. I mean, I was just more or less called in and said, well, thank you very much, and off you go. After 13 years of service, that's, I don't know, I'm not going to, that's neither here nor there. But as one door closes, another one always opens.
Yeah, and what a great opportunity with the new show, and to have it particularly around your sort of spiritual, psychic, paranormal experience.
But what shocked me with it as well, Ashley, which it wouldn't do you, I don't think. You're a great friend, of course, but you're considerably younger than me. But I come from a generation, as probably like your dad, Ray, where radio is all about turning the knob on the transistor radio. And my first question to the guy, the managing director, was, well, if you're internet radio, can you not guarantee me listeners? But I don't think anybody will listen to it because you've not got FM. He said, well, you're joking, aren't you, Philip? That's real, all that, Everybody's listening now on digital, even in their cars,
And with the internet, you can have people from all over the world.
All over listening. I used to get callers into there from all over the world as well, Again, so I understood the way the internet worked. I got it. One lady who used to regularly call into the show from Russia. Now, I don't know how she did that without going into details, because there's certain difficulties that makes they're not, what can I say? I don't know how she found her way to be
We
tuning to
can't
the
say
west.
too much. They'll probably cut us off now.
No, we don't. We don't want to lose our links, do we? You know. But
No.
anyway,
And it becomes another great medium, another great opportunity to
yeah,
talk about
yeah.
the different things we're doing. And in fact, the first time I got the internet at home, I remember going home with a free CD from PC World to connect to the internet. And I was about 12 or 13, and my granddad came round one Sunday after church, and he said, "Right, get onto that web and get me America." I said, "What do you mean, Granddad?" He said, I want to talk to America. He said, "I want some country and western music." And I remember trying to find, and even when I'm 38 now, so I'm going back a while then, but I remember finding this country and western radio station over the internet, and my granddad listening to that. And the actual town was in a place in California, Turlock. And my granddad said, "Oh, I wonder if they've got a spiritualist church." And I remember going into Google or Yahoo and saying, any spiritualist churches in Turlock, California. And we ended up making first contact from Wimbledon Church to a church over in California, which became lifetime friends of both my parents and my grandparents. Casey Stonebarger, who's actually visited the UK, and she was on my show a couple of months ago. So what a great opportunity it is, wherever we can have people that want to talk about the truth of spiritualism, to share their knowledge and to do that to a wider audience. It's fantastic. Now, June's just put in a question for you, Philip. She said, "What did your band mates make of spiritualism when you first told them?"
Well, to be quite honest, June, I think they were all very interested in it, really. I mean, you're going back to the time of the 60s or the very early 70s, maybe 60s in my case, I would think, really. And it was a great time when everyone was really looking for it, expanding their wider understandings of all things. Maybe they sort of were more interested in reaching out to different levels of existence in different ways to what I would talk about with spiritualism. But I never really had a problem, I remember, well, I won't name the guy because he's incredibly famous, and I wasn't in his band, but a band associated to, I'll put it like that. And he said to me, well, he says, I reach the higher levels, through certain makers of substances and whatnot, we'll put it like that. And I said, well, that's all right, but that's messing your head up. I can teach you something that you can get far higher than that, and you won't have no problems from it after, And he sort of did get an interest. I mean, he had a great big mansion somewhere towards where I think. But I don't mind what I'm saying, really, because you have to probably work out who it is, But he's still with us anyway today and doing well. And I never really had a problem, June, really, with that. Really, I think a lot of people who, if you love music, if you love rock and roll, why let the devil have all the good music, as a great country and western artist once said. And so you referenced your grandfather's love for that music.
Thank you, Philip. Cherie's just come in with a question and a statement. So she says you sound like a very knowledgeable person, and she's loved hearing about your life story and so many of our memories. And I was thinking, with everything you sort of know now, Philip, what's the one thing you know now that you'd wish you'd known at the beginning of your spiritualist journey?
Well, I think I wish if I could go back and have my time over again, this might surprise you, but I think I would have become a working medium a little later, perhaps in my 30s, rather than, just coming out of my teens, really. I think if I'd have done that, I would have done that if I'd have had my time over again. Because like you, coming from a spiritualist background, I think you can't help but have a lot of influences that sort of guide you in different ways. And look, Ashley, you know me as a medium teacher, and I've developed some people who've gone on to become, well, they would call themselves international medium. I don't really like that title, really, but that's another story. But I would have liked a little bit more, perhaps learning about life. I wish to offend no one, let me say, but I'm straight speaking. And I will say, I think too many mediums young mediums hit that rostrum far too young, you know. I mean, you know, people, young lasses and lads of 19 today will come to me and, Philip, how do I get on a theatre tour? I mean, sometimes it's hard not to laugh, you know, but I'll say, well, how long have you been? Oh, I've done a weekly course or a weekend course, and I've been going to spiritualism church now for 18 months, you know, and you feel confident enough. You know, you need to go and serve as a fledgling medium, you know. But I would have liked to have had a little bit more time, sort of just learning about the world, because I mean, I was very young, Ashley. I mean, I said my late teens, but you've got to understand, with my mother, I was probably approaching that. Probably it's about 13 or 14. That's incredibly young. I mean, Gordon Higginson actually, I've read many books where he references as doing his demonstration at Longton. But my mom would never have that, because she said he came along with Fanny, who was his mother, Francis Fanny. And she took him up there when he was about 13 at Darliston. So there's one for you in a little bit. But it's I don't know. It's I would have gone on and worked a little bit later. And I think if you preach something, which we do, I think you ought to have a look in what's in the mix of the pudding as well. And that's not something that a lot of young people who want to become mediums or healers or want to hear, you know. They don't want to serve the apprenticeship today, you know. And I think, well, I'm pretty sure that you and your family would agree with that. But they're encouraged as well, you know. You see them go along to church for a year, and you go back, and you know they're going up on their, and then so look, see what worries me. Let me explain this more plainly and straight. I see fantastic potential in them, but if I think you just wait a little bit to your late 20s, maybe, when you've got a bit of life experience, because you need life experience as well. You have to be accountable in knowing what you can give and what you say. A little bit more life experience, and they could be potentially fantastic, wonderful instruments for spirit. But because I think they've rushed, you know, without being nasty, I think their work's often a little hit and miss, you know. It's just my opinion, you know.
I think you're never too old and you're never too young to get involved in spiritualism.
Oh no,
and
no,
be that your started journey. And again, chatting just before we went live, you paid me a nice compliment about watching me grow up within spiritualism and start to do a little bit more. And I can't remember exactly what I said, but the point of trying to take a daily advancement every day to try and do something sort of spiritual.
Yes.
And you know, my dad, you know, my dad sort of, if you like, introduction to spiritualism. I think he was about 11 or 12 when he had a conversation with his grandfather at the bottom of his bed, who had recently passed away, and that was his sort of first knowledge about it. So I think spirit will work with us as a medium whenever we are, but you also need the time, don't you, individually?
You do.
And as a young teenager, I
don't
have that
understand
discipline.
the commitment and the discipline that's required. Absolutely agree with you entirely.
I still struggle now, you know, certainly with two young boys to find the time to properly meditate.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do, and yet I remember saying to you, I don't know, would it be, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago or something like that? I don't know. And you were starting to do some work, and I don't know, you seemed a little apprehensive, which surprised me. And I said, well, go on there, get up. You have everything. You'd be a super medium. You'd be a super instrument for spirit. And you said, do you think so? And I said, no, I don't think so. I know so. And I don't know. I don't know if that was a little bit of inspiration for you. I don't know. But I always try to inspire and encourage young mediums. But I also try to get through that, as you've said, that you need a lot of commitment, and you need to do it at the right time when you're ready. Often they don't do so much circle work. They don't listen to their medium teachers these days. I'm always asked about doing these weekend workshops, you know, and on Zoom and what have you. And I mean, I don't know. As long as I could do it in a way that, you know, it was an introduction to, or separate probably groups of people who did want to get it. I mean, we come from families who, well, my mother never left the West Midlands, she never wanted to. But my father, who later became a medium, was an ex-professional soldier, really, in his early years. But Dad went out and did the big venues, the same as I would go on to do, and the theatres and all that. But I think some young people today, that they just want to, sort of run before they can walk. And if you get up there, and I always say spirit will always help you one way or another. But if you've not learned how to make your links, and you get up there, if you, I'm going to say foolish enough to go and do a venue in a big pub or something, and spirit let you down, you're going to be so shattered and embarrassed about what can be the worst thing, to look up into that audience and see people walking out. But I've seen that in venues, shattered, and people who probably could have been very, very good have just gone for the thing too fast. That's just my opinion.
No, and it segues into a question actually we've had from Lisa, who asks about what advice we could give if people wanted to develop their mediumship skills. So I'll let you go first, Philip, and I'll give my opinion afterwards.
Hiya, Lisa. Oh my! I must be psychic, Lisa, because I think I've more or less just answered your question with Ashley, haven't I? But the advice I would say is to take your time and develop properly. I'd also suggest reading as many autobiographies as you can about good mediums. People will say, oh, well, you will end up reading all the commercial books. You've heard Ashley talk about wonderful Doris Stokes and people like that. And of course, she had a plethora of books. But by reading these people's autobiographies rather than books they've written, autobiographies, you learn about their life. And you can see generally parallels in your own. And that gives you a great opportunity, to start looking at mediumship in the way that you really should, and to understand how those people gave of their life to start their early service. As I said to Ashley, I'm not wishing to upset anybody or hurt anybody, but you can't rush up there and be looking for the fame of doing a theatre show, or perhaps going along to what Spirit Quest was it, something of that nature, with Ashley's father and mum. You're gonna struggle if you jump before you can, learn to understand what you're doing. That would be my advice, Lisa. Read as much as you can. Go along when you can to Spiritualist Church. But if you're very young, if you're in your teens, enjoy your life as well. Spirit will find you, and you'll find the right teacher who will guide and teach you to do your work properly. The only other thing I would say, and I have said this to a lot of young people who want to develop their mediumship skills, don't waste your time being in a circle that you don't feel comfortable with, or you're too shy to ask questions, or you feel, and I'm going to put myself on the spot here, but that's the way I am. If you feel that there's favoritism and you're not being moved forward as quickly as you feel you should do, then you need to move to another circle. I know this is going off at a tangent, Lisa, but I once had a lady come to some of my classes. I think I was the first medium. I think I was the first medium to teach psychic studies at higher education, universities, and senior colleges and things like that. And I had this lady come on, and she honestly, Lisa, she must have been, I would think, in the late 60s, early 70s. And she said, I hope you're going to help me. I said, because I've been sitting in circle for 28 years and I'm still not getting anything. Well, she came with me for about 8 months. And one night she came to me at college and says, I'm leaving classes now, Philip. I hope you'll understand. I said, I'm a little disappointed because you've been doing so well. Oh, no. She says, I've got it now. It's all coming through after being with someone who could push me and get me working. I'm off now. I'm going to become an international medium. And she went on holiday to Spain and started to do the work. And that lady actually is quite well known today. I hope that she's still with us. I feel that she would be. out in Spain and Portugal and Gibraltar, I think she went. But that's not me, anything special about me. She found the right teacher. She found the right teacher. Don't waste your time in a circle that you don't feel comfortable with or you don't feel that you're making progress.
Yeah.
I'm going to hand that over to you, if I may now.
No, good. I mean, very well answered. And I said, yeah, we must be psychic, because you did start answering the question before it suddenly came in. But
Yes.
you know, Lisa, absolutely echo with what Phil said. I'm for those that watch the show regularly, we know this isn't my usual backdrop. I've actually crashed into my mum and dad's flat as my internet and broadband had went down, and we're not breaking the rules as such. They're part of a childcare bubble, so they're looking after the boys for me, and I'm allowed to be here before anyone grasses me up. But my dad, almost like my personal private spiritualist secretary, suddenly wrote on a piece of paper which he gave to me, and he said one of his favourite books on mediumship is by Ivy Northage, and there's a book called Mediumship Made Simple, and there's this concept of plain English in that, and you know, for me, they were the things that fascinated me. And people like Harry Edwards, I mean, Harry Edwards is obviously very worldwide known as a spiritual healer. No worries. We were having a quick catch up.
We were. Very interesting.
Hi. Well, good evening, folks. Sorry for the technical issues. We're now back live. Thank you to Richard James in the studio down in Portsmouth for getting us back online. Very much appreciated. And for where we lost you, we were just talking about spiritualist mediumship development, and I was echoing Philip's comments. Ultimately, it's difficult to go and find a spiritualist church right now, but find a spiritualist or a spiritualist centre, a spiritualist church local to you. Befriend those people. You know, Philip and I are both on Faithfulness, for example. Find someone that you're drawn to and ask them about developing, finding yourself. I'm going to answer this question, Philip, with a question for you at the end, because I've always believed that although the medium themselves, very much their personality, the way that they deliver the evidence, the way they interact and I use the word entertain people, and I think you do need to be able to, particularly a theatre, you need to entertain everyone that's not getting the message as well.
Absolutely.
They're all skills and their strengths with the human being. But from a communication point of view, I've always believed that spirit aren't necessarily fussy, and that actually anybody in theory with the right discipline has the potential to develop, to attune, to find this sort of communication. So I know lots of mediums talk about the fact that they have the gift and they're special. I think the gift is more around the strengths they bring to their mediumship. So yeah, in theory, anybody could learn about this, but like a radio, I like the way you were describing the turning on the AM FM earlier on. It's that level of attunement, isn't it? It's practicing and having that discipline.
Well, I mean, if you're going to sort of, I think people will be reasonably tolerant in most of our churches. I certainly hope they would, if they realise that you're at the start of your career. But it was a great point that you made about this desperate thing that people want to go out there and do venues, do events and all that. And I'm not going to go over what we've already talked about because we covered it. But you certainly do have to have a little bit of showmanship or the ability to have that sort of skills, because they are skills to work on. It's a totally different job to work in a theatre. I mean, that it is to be doing a demonstration of clairvoyance after a service in church. It's a totally different job. And of course, those people in the theatre, and you've got to remember half of them may well have been dragged along by partners who have no belief at all in anything, you know, or they're missing the football, or vice versa, they're missing Coronation Street, you know, or whatever. And, you know, and there are, it's certainly, and that's such a good point you make, you know, because there aren't many people out there who sort of will teach you the stagecraft, are they? And I used to do a workshop on that, where only for advanced mediums, of course, or those who were working the rostrum, but that they would have stagecraft, because you've got to have stagecraft to go and work at live. You put on large, what would you call them? I mean, I think they're all driven towards spirit work, but they're also with an entertainment factor built in to entertain the people over the long weekends, And if more often than not, the showman will appear perhaps to be better than the medium who stands there very, very quietly and very humbly speaks into the microphone or you can see he's desperate to get off stage and to talk to one or two people, but you've got to entertain everybody as well. People will say, everybody's listening to me. They hear my message. Well, don't worry about that. Let your audience know that that's perfectly acceptable. If Spirit were offended by that, the way some fairly experienced medium teachers might have suggested in the past, do you think for one moment they would come through for that medium? They wouldn't, would they? But you've got to have the stagecraft as well. You can't just walk into big venue. I mean, you're very, very lucky, actually, because you come from a family, especially your grandfather. I mean, he was very much involved in, as you say, taking Doris Stokes. Wasn't he Doris's manager at one time?
Yeah, I mean, they're both not with us now, so I can not be worried about being sued. But the way I always had it is Doris.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, she had a book manager and she had a professional service there. But my grandfather certainly drove around the country, taking it to venues and putting on. So I think you could use the word manager, and they'd be great friends.
Laurie O'Leary, I'm going to say now, Laurie O'Leary was a great friend of mine. I've got to say that. But really, and I wonder if he could open the doors for his show business and his links to get the theatres rolling. But I think I would certainly name your grandfather as certainly a leading figure in bringing Doris out and onto the stage like that. But I can tell you, do we have time? I can tell you a story about Laurie,
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't think he would. He's not with us now, of course, but. When Doris passed away, he had me in a little interview, and I was the guy, who he had the idea of to fulfil the role. And I'll say it openly, I came back and I said, it's wonderful, it's really impressed me. And Laurie helped me a lot in my later life, especially with going out to America and that. I'm going to say that. But my wife says, you're not doing it. I said, well, what do you mean? I says, well, he runs all those clubs for the craze. I says, well, I asked him about this, and it's all different today. It's proper business and nothing to. But Laurie once said to me, and I'm going to say it because it's true. Okay, you've turned it down, Philip. You're a fool because I know who I'm going to go and get, and I'll make you famous all over the country, if not the world. You're a fool. I says, well, I'll tell you what my wife said, and I told him what she said. He says, well. Yes, of course, he said, but those people, they've gone, they're in lovely guys, that was what he said, but they're in prison now, but all the rest of the people are just businessmen. But even though you've turned me down, if you ever have any trouble in London, just let me know and I'll get it sorted for you. And my missus went, there you go. He got a point, hadn't he, really? I don't know, just a very silly story, but it's true.
I mean, it's good, and thank you for mentioning my granddad. I'm sure he's watching the equivalent broadband connection in heaven today, and he would love this. He would absolutely love this. It's all about taking spiritualism out to people, but I've never seen my grandfather work as a medium. I know in private circles, and he was quite powerful. He was also very powerful as a healer. What he knew and what he was very gifted at is he was knowing what the people needed and wanted. About getting the evidence across. Don't go on and be an entertainer. Go and give evidence of life after death.
That's what it's
do
all
that
about.
In an entertaining way. Give evidence of the personality. Let those people know there is life after life, and give them the evidence of that person. And I can remember my granddad at the back of our church in Wimbledon, and back in the early setup, he even had like a red light bulb which he could turn on behind him. And if you were the medium up at Wimbledon and you were not fulfilling that obligation.
I've heard this story. Yeah,
he could turn the light on, or he could cut the mic. And
yes.
The idea was that you had that absolute respect. You know, you had to dress properly. You had to respect. My granddad was a South London barrowman in Brixton. He could have some colourful language, but not in the church. He walked into that place. The discipline changed, and the education changed. And I've had the advantage of watching you work, Philip, and I think you're a great evidential medium, and you also work in a lovely, entertaining and uplifting way. But for the people that haven't seen you, what do you think would be the best thing about someone seeing you demonstrate your mediumship? What do you do that's unique to you?
Well, I think I'm very lucky in as much that I know you've seen me work several times, but I mean, I don't give any acclaim at all to myself. It's all from spirit. But I suppose I'm rather lucky that I can get, you know, the surnames. And I mean, I've got telephone numbers and car registrations and all sorts of things like that. And I'm not going to say it's not pleasing when you hear the gasps in the crowds, you know. But in a lot of ways, that's made me a little bit of an arse teacher, really, because I always say, well, if I can do that, that's what you've got to aim for. I mean, you've had some wonderful people on your events. And then I've seen one or two people who maybe I weren't that impressed with, if you want me to be desperately honest with you. But you can only give what you get. And I think I've always been very blessed by Spirit that they've given me things that you couldn't really disagree with. I mean, I remember one instance of many, but I don't think you've ever met my daughter Nadine. She doesn't do the work anymore, which is a shame. She's a great psychic artist. And I'd given this Asian gentleman, an Indian guy, a message, and it was fantastic, you know. But she used to draw the pictures of what I was getting, like Coral Polge, and I was the last today. So who's the psychic artist today? So
sure.
Oh, she's going to be cross with me for not remembering her name, but I digress anyway. But she drew an old British motorcycle, and on the number plate, she put a number plate in. And the Indian man said, "No, I don't recognise that at all. I don't know that at all." And I was on another event about 4 weeks later. I can't remember where the venue was, but whatever. And he'd didn't get a message that night, but he'd come up to me with a picture. He says, "This is amazing." He says, "This was the motorcycle, the British motorcycle that my grandfather rode in India. And she's got the registration number." And I thought, well, that's fantastic. And perhaps I'm a little harsh, but when I've been a medium teacher, I've always said to the mediums that I've been developing, this is what you must, you know, it's no good, this Tom, Dick and Harry, and I've got your Uncle Alf, you know, we've all got an Uncle Alf. If you can bring Uncle Alf forward, then what was Uncle Alf's middle name, or better still, his surname? Did he draw, what card did he draw? Oh, you can see a little mini. Okay. What colour is it? What's the registration number of it? And I don't know, maybe I could be a bit fearsome sometimes, because I think you can only develop to what Spirit allow you to. But that's what you should aim for. And I think I've been incredibly lucky. I mean, I remember going out to be tested by Hans. I think your grandfather was one of the advisors who said, "Oh, I wouldn't go out there, you know. They've all been out there, you know. I'm not going to reel the names off." And parapsychologist, you know, he's given them all a test. But he was fantastic with me. And I said to him, you know, in private, you know, and he became my mentor later, as you know, but what was it that really struck you? He said, "Well, you gave me a German Shepherd dog that I had during the war years." He says, "And I can remember now. I never remember a message that I've given, as you know. The minute people have come and asked mediums after, I can't pick a message up. Once I come off, it's gone. But he says, you gave me the dog, which I thought was pretty good, you know." He says, "But you told me what its name was." And I think it was something like Rigo or some unusual thing. He said, "I've never seen anyone do it." I said, "Well, surely. Oh, we've got somebody mentioning Coral Polge coming up, Ashley."
Yes, Julie Caswell, she was saying she had 2 paintings done by Coral, her mum and dad's guides.
She's lovely, Coral, yeah.
I think that you mentioned Doris Stokes, and I still watch her on YouTube every now
She
and then.
was great,
There's
wasn't
one, is
she?
it the Barbican or the Babbacon she was at?
Yeah, the
And
Barbican, yeah.
my dad said to me, I said, what made her so great? And he said it wasn't just her mediumship, it was her personality. And
Yeah,
he said,
yeah,
that theatre might have had 500-600 people in, but the person getting the message felt like they were the only person there, and what
yeah,
they were getting was absolute proof of the
yeah,
life of the person they
true.
loved and cared about, now living in the spirit world. And they felt very special, and it gave them
Absolutely,
a great sense of security to know that there was no death, that there was this
absolutely.
life after that.
And
And
now
I thought that
Laurie,
was
or
incredible.
I think it was Tony Orton, some of them, they used to lead them down to the stage, didn't they? With that, I don't think they've got the long shot videos in those days, had they? That that we've had in the last 20 years. Wonderful, wonderful memories. Oh, I'm sorry I interrupted you. It's just
No, it's fine.
fascinating. Yeah.
We sort of come up to just 9:05. We've got about 25 minutes left of the show. I
Oh,
always say to the people viewing that after 9 is sort of the time they can start throwing in any sort of spiritual
sure,
questions. Now,
sure.
I've not only seen you work as a medium, I've seen you work as a fantastic tutor and teacher. I've been participating in some of your workshops. So
Thank
I
you.
know there's almost no subject that you couldn't comment on. So I'll ask the people that are watching to start thinking about their questions. But certainly some of the things I was just seeing in the chat, everyone was agreeing with what you were saying, Philip, around the stagecraft. Phil Shaw, who is a great medium, serves at Wimbledon Church. He actually runs our open platform, and Phil Shaw has a background in professional sort of theatre and acting, and one of the things that he was reiterating with you is that it's so important as part of that development of someone as a medium to work on that presentation. My own circle leader Mary was also commenting, about putting people up on platform, as you said earlier on, fledglings. Get up and serve your local churches as fledglings, build up that confidence, learn how to accept the no's as well as the yeses. That's what my dad always says to me. Take any no as a challenge, as you just said there, Philip.
Absolutely.
Take the no and say, right, let's not just get Uncle Fred. Let's find out exactly what it is.
So, stagecraft and platform presentation are so important. They're important things, alongside your spiritual development. If you wish to work at the sort of levels and venues that your grandfather and your father used to present, you'd be in awful trouble if you got up there. I mean, I did my own theatre once, and I was nervous about that. 2,000 people at the Wolverhampton Grand, because it's my own people, my own town, and I've never been. You know me, I'm very strange. Doris used to be very, very nervous. Your grandfather would have told you that. Very, very nervous. I never have any nerves at all, hardly. Once I start to make my way towards the stage, it's all gone. And I'm quite happy to chat before events and everything. I don't have a problem with that at all. But your platform work and stagecraft, if that's where you want to go, but get your church presentation platform work right as well. Because however good you are, if you're going to be up there and people can't hear you, we've heard it, haven't we? People whispering into the microphone.
Yeah.
And you've got to be accurate,
Practice, get that evidence. Gordon used to say to my grandfather about the importance of readings. I know that because my granddad used to force it back on me. Gordon always said, get and do those private readings, Ash. Get yourself in the church. I'm going to people queuing up. Get them all in from the congregation and just do them time and time again.
Definitely.
And as you just said there, it's not just about, I've got a great grandfather here that says he loves you. No, who was the grandfather's name? Where was he born? What we all those things. And if you don't have that safe space within a spiritualist community or a centre or a decent circle, a circle leader, then it's not going to give you the same opportunity to practice.
To be a medium in that sort of environment, you must have a little bit of ego as well. You must have that belief,
Just enough, Phil, not too much, yeah.
No, not too much. If you get too much ego, then I'll tell you, that's another thing for the listeners to listen to. Spirit will take it away from you if you get too much of an ego. But every part of stagecraft, Phil would tell you the same thing. The other Phil, not me. Well, I'm telling you as well. But if you're going to go now sort of venues, it's so important to have that platform presentation and stay a little bit, not too much, but a little bit of stagecraft in place. You can't go from working in front of 7 people in a tiny little spiritualist church to play in your local theatre. You're going to get destroyed. You're going to get destroyed. And probably the sad thing is, we probably lose a wonderful talent because they've tried to run before they can walk. I know I've probably said that 3 or 4 times tonight, but
nurture talent.
That's what it is.
Okay, yep. What we're going to do, folks, we're going to do just a couple of upcoming adverts for the channel, and that gives you some time to get all your questions in on the live chat. Richard will then play them back to us over the last sort of 15, 20 minutes. But as I say, I've been to lots of Philip's workshops. He's a fantastic teacher and tutor on almost anything spiritual. I know that a lot of the people that watch this show, Philip, are fascinated by the concept of reincarnation and karma. We've spoken about that a few times, so I'll plant that seed. No doubt we'll get a question or two around that, but otherwise I'm going to let you know about a couple of other things that are happening on Spiritual Psychics TV over the next couple of days. So first thing you'll see at the bottom of your screen is the fan page. You can copy and paste that link into Facebook, or if you search for SPTV fan page, it's an opportunity, it's a little group, there's an opportunity there. We'll share things about upcoming events, but it's also a little community to have a little bit of a chit chat, to ask for, to send spiritual healing. So do go and find the Spiritual Psychic TV fan page. You can also find me on Facebook. I'm at Ash Robinson Medium on both Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Although on Twitter I'm Taxi_Robinson, and Taxi is a nickname from rugby, which I'll have to tell you about another time. But it's something to do with always getting over the line and carrying about 6 people with me. So an old Twitter handle. But Philip Solomon, our guest tonight, is also on Facebook. So if you search for Philip Solomon, you'll be able to find his Facebook page too. So do go and connect with him and engage with him. And of course, hashtag your photos, your screenshots, your feedback about different people and things you've seen. Hashtag Spiritual Psychic TV. An advert coming up for you folks. So Richard is down in the studio on the South Coast, and from 10 o'clock this evening he will be switching off the lights and the infrared cameras on live from the studio. It's a bit of an experiment, a couple of times that's been going on just to see the different bits and pieces happening. But what with technology, we have a great opportunity to almost challenge, in a very delicate and polite way, spirit to communicate with us in different ways. I know that all the work we've done to upgrade Wimbledon Spiritualist Church with the microphones, we have installed some software which, in simple terms, measures the decibels, how loud certain things are coming in over Zoom or Skype and the microphones. And the guy that was setting that up is the son-in-law of Leslie Knight, an incredible guy, very talented. But one of the things that really spooked him out, he remotely dialed into the PC about 20 minutes after a physical circle, and he knew that no one was there, so he had the perfect 0 settings. And then all of a sudden, they started having all these decibel readings. There was definitely some energy going on at Women in Spiritualist Church. So even remotely, he'll come back another day, perhaps with his mother-in-law or someone else.
Fantastic.
Some flashing lights and shadows have been seen so far, folks. Orbs and voices. So yeah, for those of you, I know there's a lot of you that are really interested in the paranormal investigation, and as I've always said, look for the supernormal before you find the supernatural. But great opportunity to do some of that this evening. I know that Julie Castle, who's working here tonight, she's very interested in that. Yep. Okay, so tomorrow night we have a fantastic demonstration of mediumship with the very unique Mr. Ivan Lee. That's tomorrow, Saturday, the 21st of November from 8 p.m. And that is a demonstration of mediumship with Ivan Lee. It'll be a great night, folks. Do check that out. And if you haven't been bored enough of me, I'm actually serving my home church on Sunday morning with Reverend Daddy Ray Robinson. So that's a divine service with Women and Spiritualist Church, live from the church in South London. That's every Sunday morning, and this Sunday from 11 a.m. on Spiritual Psychics TV. Afterwards, chill out, folks, on the sofa. You have the Sunday sofa with the ladies. You've got some free readings, the opportunity for a spiritual and psychic chit chat. That's every Sunday afternoon from 2:30 p.m. UK time, live streamed across youtube.com Spiritual Psychics TV. And then advance notice about a very special event of trance demonstration with Polly Harnett. And that is Sunday, the 6th of December from 7:30 p.m. Patrons of this channel, of this show, can get a discount to those tickets of £8 or £5 for Angel members. And you can find out more information about that on the Spiritual Psychics TV fan page. But a double demonstration, trance demonstration there are with Polly Harnett on Sunday, the 6th of December. I can brief. Richard was reminding me that every now and then I channel my dad. I think because he's only about 500 meters away in the other room, I'm probably channeling that ability to keep chatting. So yeah, Richard was kindly moving me on, folks, to the next segment. So we've got about 10-15 minutes left of the show, and I hope that you've had some time to bring in some of your questions. I know that Mary, one of my circle leaders there, was saying that some of her circle were in a bit of trepidation over going up on platform during circle, but once they'd tried it, they couldn't wait to do it again. And I noticed a lot of people, Philip, were talking about the calmness they see from us this evening, and certainly when we're working as mediums. And I won't go too much into to my private life, but I've got two little beautiful boys, bundles of joy and demolition. They certainly challenge me as much as they delight me. And you know, I've problems. I lose my temper. I have problems keeping calm at times. But there's definitely something about my spiritual work. In the same way that I physically get a burst of energy out of playing rugby or exercising, for me, my spiritual work has to be part of that. It's like a spiritualist gym. You know, I notice when I'm not working, when I'm not meditating, having that sort of wellness, that balance isn't always there. How about you, Philip?
Well, that's excellently how you put it, really. I mean, you will know, I'm sure, that, again, in my earlier career, I did a lot of sports psychology and stuff of that nature and worked with some incredibly famous boxers, you know. I mean, my father's side came from a boxing family. I boxed as a young boy, very good schoolboy level. And I think my father perhaps saw me as a professional boxer one day. I don't think I was good, you know. But I don't think that was the way for me. I don't think Mommy would have been very pleased about that, you know. And but yeah, I very much enjoyed that sort of work, you know. And strangely enough, I know you're a great sportsman yourself, and you do find that people like that, professional boxers, who, I mean, when they go into the ring and that, they're almost taking their life in their hands, in their gloves, if you like, to some extent. And they do reach out on a spiritual level, you know. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say it because he's unprofessional, but I mean, some of the guys that I've worked with have, you know, gone on and won world titles, and you see them, and their language is extremely ripe, and they're very aggressive. But if you get them on one side, sportsmen. I mean, my major work has been with footballers and boxers, of course. I don't know too much about rugby, but all sports similar. And they're all very spiritual personages, and that surprises a lot of people, really. But I've found that to be the case, you know. So I'm not at all surprised that you follow the sport that you do. It's not that unusual, really. My father was super medium, came to the work late, but I mean, my dad had been a very good cricket player and a very good boxer, especially during the war. He'd done both to United, you know, when all the services come together, the Army, the Navy and the Air Force, and he'd sort of competed in all those sort of competitions. But went to Burma with my dad and came back never really the same. Really. Very much looking towards spiritual guidance. Met my mom, and from a staff sergeant in the parachute regiment, became a very good medium.
Lovely.
Very different lifestyles.
Oh,
Yeah, I
thank
think
you.
some of the things that you said are great, and I know you're a big lad. I can imagine
Well, to be, you can
powerful.
see I'm with this camera angle in particular. I usually just have a headshot. I've got more of a face for radio, but I can keep looking at myself in this camera, thinking, boy, oh boy, I've missed rugby. I've managed to still find beers and pies during lockdown, but I've missed the physical exertion.
Have you
So
put a
yeah,
little bit of stock on there and a little bit of weight?
yeah.
Okay.
Carrying too much. In fact, I'm the heaviest I've ever been in my life at the moment. So, yeah, I'm just trying to get out and do a bit more. And I think, yeah, watching myself on camera today, I've never spent this long in front of a mirror. That's effectively what I've got here tonight. So, some good inspiration from Spirit. I can hear my granddad say, "Stop eating, son." You can just hear him whispering in my ear. Cherie Dyer has a nice question here,
Okay.
Philip, about how do
Hiya,
you find
Cherie.
your guide?
Well, it's a good question, actually, because I would say your guide finds you, or your guides find you. I mean, I think as you go through natural development, obviously you start to learn how to work with your guides and be protect. I always think my main role of my guides for me is to protect me and influence me to do when I'm doing work in places that, let's be honest, sometimes the energies are not what you would want to have coming forward, but they protect you and keep you safe. But I think if you look back in your life, even when you're very young, Sherry, that you see instances where your guides have come into your life and perhaps not made you aware of them because they wouldn't want to perhaps scare you or think it wasn't the right time in your life to be aware of them. But I think once you start to grow spiritually, they come forward. And I wouldn't say that. I said they find you. I mean, I suppose it's a mutual thing with your development, isn't it? With your progression, Sherry. It would be that. But I think they find you quite naturally. I mean, I've had lots of conversations with people who will say to me, and I'm not knocking their work, but oh, my father is my guide or my grand. That's very unlikely, really. It's more likely that a guide is someone who's quite ascended generally, who's spent a long time in the spirit world and has maybe. I mean, I'm an unusual medium. You mentioned reincarnation. From my studies in India and places like that, I believe that we do have past lives. I think you have to be on the other side for a long while before you do come back. I don't think the way some say that you immediately come back and you're into another life. But I mean, people are saying to me that, I work with the angels. The angels are my guides. That ain't strictly true, really. Angels are on a much higher level of existence, really, the angelic realm. Your guides are generally people who probably, like for like, are rather similar to you, who have been in this world, have progressed, and want to come back and help you and guide you. And they come naturally into your life. I don't know whether you would agree with that
Yeah,
comment.
it was a really nice way of putting it, actually, Philip. And Cherie, if you go back onto the shows, I think it was the third or fourth show of Being Spiritual, we had a special on guides and inspirers. And I said that it's almost like for me when I watch Pinocchio and you see Jiminy Cricket, helping Pinocchio, the difference between right and wrong.
Exactly.
We all have a principal guide probably that is somewhere between our sort of instinct and intuition, that person right within our inner self that we look to for the difference between right and wrong and the way to go. But of course, we also have free will. We're gifted with that. And, I like you, Philip, I agree in the concept of the possibility of reincarnation. But I think the reason we don't have those memories is to focus on now, to live this life.
I think you're right.
To learn from that.
And I would just add, what, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Sherry, but I would put an S on the end of guides because we have several guides. Everyone will speak of the special guide. And maybe we do have that special guide, but we have different guides who will come forward and work with us in different times of our life. I mean, I'm not quite open to speak of two of the guys that worked a lot with me as a younger man. That would be who I would refer to as MacDonald, and another lady who I would refer to as Marion. And I was only saying the other day to Kath, I haven't had McDonald's through for several years, But I understand that. I accept that. He's probably helping some other person that he feel needs guidance and taking forward, and that I'm not the one that he needs to be, because they're progression as well. We all make constant progression in this world and the Iron Network. We all make progression. And probably when they've done their work that they feel is adequate and appropriate with you, they move on to someone else. But it would always be an S on the end of guides to me. You have several guides, not just one, really, in my opinion.
I totally agree, Phil. And if it's you're very unlikely to find a Jack or Jane of all trades, aren't you? If you want an expert in something, you'd go to the expert. So my father-in-law's a builder, and he's very talented across a number of things. He can do a bit of electrical work, he can do a bit of plumbing, but his principal skill is around building. So if you wanted guidance on building, you'd go to him, but you'd go to his brother, the carpenter, for the wood chip bit. And I think that our guides are almost like that. So when I was developing as a medium, I had someone particularly come along to help with the mediumship. If I was looking more into healing, I'd have maybe a healing guide that would come and make himself present. So I agree, and it was a really nice way of putting it. There
is an ultimate guide, but the ultimate guide, of course, is Jesus. But I'm coming to my Christianity and.
No, I mean, I had Birgitta on my show last week, and she spoke about channeling, and she spoke about ascended masters, and she spoke about Jesus as an ascended master, and the lives that he may have lived, and Jesus being one of those personalities, if you like, for want of a better word. And actually, you mentioned the angelic realm. So in 2 weeks' time, I've got Ashley Mills, who I think you would have met perhaps at Spiritual Weekends. She's going to come and talk about realms like the Dragon Realm, and I'm going to live a little bit of an introduction. I think that there's so much of the universe we're yet to understand. But again, the focus is on us now as human beings on Earth, the life we're living, our ability to give service, to show unconditional love. Those things are possible. So Cherie's given you some feedback there, Philip. She said that was brilliant. Thank you very much. And she could understand what you mean. So she's grateful for that feedback.
Thank you for a good question, Cherie.
A lot of people also agreeing with you when we were talking about fledglings, Philip. Lots of chat here. In fact, there's an awful lot of interest. I think there's a bit of a petition now for Richard to facilitate some sort of fledglings night and get some more people developed. But again, a lot of people showing caution and saying, teams should take their time. You can't do a couple of online circles and suddenly think you can go and start working. Take your time. Some work. Interesting people. Cherie Dye also said she asked about her God and Jesus, and she answered so well. So nice questions and answers. Some good feedback there. Just trying to flick through some of the other questions that have come in. We've probably got time for one more. I don't know if you want to pick one, Richard. I'm scrolling through the live chat. Comments and statements. People generally really enjoyed it, I think, Philip.
Good.
Just said they found it very, very interesting. And lots of people talking about guides. And it was one of the things, Philip, we spoke about just before going live, wasn't it? The importance of community.
Yes.
The importance of being able to find like-minded people. And I've loved chatting with you this evening, and I think that the beautiful thing about spiritualism, in the same way I said that labels are private to each other, when you show that respect and unconditional love towards people, it means that people can have different opinions to you. It doesn't make it a situation that you need to tolerate. It becomes something which is absolutely compatible.
And it's the way we work as well. Everyone has special different gifts, and they have to facilitate them and learn how. My mother could always do something that I always wished that I could do, Ash. When she healed, it was wonderful, really. She used to have loads of oil form in her hands, and it would really actually be dripping down from her hands. And I've always wished I could do that. And I don't know why, because we all heal in different ways. But I was always fascinated by that. And I can see her now. I was a bit tearful, really. I can see her now when she would wipe her hands and she would wipe it on their foreheads and that, and it would be dripping from her hands. And I used to think, oh, well, how wonderful, I wish I could do that. But then she would say to me, well, Philip, that's not the gift that Spirit give you. They give you other things to work in. She was ever so wise, Mum. I miss my mother desperately in the physical world. I'm sure you do, your loved ones. We all do, don't we? You know.
It no matter the knowledge I have of that life in heaven, the physical presence of someone, the energy received from that, it's it's very important. A man I often quote on these shows is Ralph Steadman, and
lovely Ralph, yeah.
Ralph can talks about the fact that we just need to continue to talk to people in the same way we did. We don't need to change that way, and then we're all about to experience communication in a different way. But no, Philip, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it too.
Immensely, and it's been my pleasure to join you and Richard tonight. It's been super. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
People can find you on Facebook by looking for Philip Solomon, and they can find you on the internet radio.
Absolutely. I just type my Philip Solomon Medium into Google, you'll find me.
And your autobiography, is that available for people to purchase?
Yes, I believe that's still available. Guided by the Light, the autobiography of a natural medium. And but my latest book, of course, was The A to Z of Spiritualism. That was about 18 months ago. And as I say, post-retirement, I've been having a look at a lot of different things, really, but I've got this drive at the moment that I think I would like to get back into doing some teaching. I'd like to get out there and develop some young people. We need to get some really super young mediums like yourself to come through and follow us Howdens, as we say in the Black Country.
Wow, that's great. And folks, you heard it first on this show. Coming to a centre or a space near you will be Philip Solomon. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Richard James in the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on Being Spiritual. Good night, God bless, and stay safe. And perhaps join us at 10 o'clock for the infrared cameras and the paranormal investigation from the comfort and safety of your armchair at home. Good night. Stay safe, folks. Bye.
Good night and God bless from me too.